Agenda item number 1 is the minutes of the previous meeting. To approve as a correct record the minutes of the Audit Committee held on the 2nd of September 2021. Do I have someone to propose those as a correct and accurate record? Councillor Taylor to propose them, and seconded. Councillor Spencer seconds that as an accurate record of the meeting. Item 2, there is no urgent business to be brought forward at the discretion of the chairman, so we're moving on to item 3. There should be no necessity to divide the agenda to consider any of the items on the agenda later on. Item 4, declarations of interest. Members are invited to declare any personal or disclosable pecuniary interests that they may have, including the nature and extent of such interests, in any item to be considered at that meeting. Do any members wish to declare an interest? No. Thank you. So we move on to the main agenda items of the Audit Committee today, which is the grant, fraud and report, and also moving on to consider the different statements of accounts and management reports. So agenda item number 5, the grant, fraud and report of audited accounts. I pass to Mr. Murray, who is here today from Grant Thornton, to present the accounts to the committee.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you all. So the first of 2 of our reports on the agenda today mainly focuses on our audit of the financial statements, which, as we said, the statement of accounts are a later agenda item on today's agenda. I'm going to start with this report. I will briefly make reference to value for money, but our second report, agenda item number 6, covers that in more detail. So the report in front of you, if I start on page 7 of the agenda pack, the page entitled Headlines, gives a summary of where we are with our financial statements audit. So at the time of drafting, there was a final assurance required from the Devon Pension Fund auditor, which I'm pleased to report I received yesterday. And we were finalising our internal quality reviews and any subsequent questions. That has all now been concluded, so subject to the agenda item later today and committee approving the statement of accounts, following my final concluding procedures, I intend to issue an unqualified opinion on the Council's financial statements for 2020-21. So that's clearly the opinion that the committee would wish to hear. I'm conscious that this meeting was due to be at the end of September and was delayed and deferred to this point. That was frankly due to our work still being underway. As I mentioned, some of those pension fund assurances we didn't receive until yesterday. To give some context to that, the target date for local government accounts was the end of September this year, brought forward from the end of November last year. 9% of local government bodies around the country had an audit opinion issued by that date. So a significant number of other local authorities are in the same position. Your closest neighbours in Devon, none of those audits were completed by the end of September. So I just wanted to add some context as to why we're talking today rather than a month ago and where we are. So that's some headlines on the financial statements. I'll go through in a little bit more detail through the report. The headline on value for money is that we've completed our work on the value for money assessment as well. I'll come on to our detailed commentary in our separate report, but we're satisfied that the Council has made proper arrangements for securing economy, efficiency and effectiveness in its use of resources. As we've discussed previously, we would historically have given a separate opinion on value for money. That's changed and we no longer do so. The separate report provides our commentary, and I'll touch on that later. And then finally on page 8, in terms of any other statutory duties, didn't exercise any other statutory powers or duties. There were no objections to the financial statements, and I've not undertaken any more powers. Final bullet point on the left there says to certify the closure of the audit. So whilst our work is complete, we also require to review the whole of government accounts return that the Council produces and then shares with HM Treasury. The template to do that hasn't yet been issued, so the Council's been unable to populate that, and the National Audit Office haven't yet issued the auditor guidance for us to review those templates once they're done. The latest information is that the Council should receive the template probably in December. So until that work has been concluded, we're unable to certify closure of the audit. So although I'll issue the audit opinion, and that can be published on the website, the final certification of the closure of the audit will not be able to take place until that work has been able to be completed. That doesn't change the opinion in any way that I'm giving. It just prevents the council publishing that the audit is fully concluded until that time. So those are the headlines. The rest of the report then goes into some of the detail on our findings and the work that we undertook. Page 10 of the agenda pack sets out the materiality levels that we audited to. So, as always, we don't audit to the penny or the pound, we audit to a materiality level. That level remains unchanged from the audit plan that we presented to the previous audit committee. And then the next few pages set out the risks that we identified in our audit plan. So page 11, the first risk is that of management override of controls. So this is a presumed risk at all entities. Every auditor has to review this as every audit that they undertake. We detail the work that we undertook, which largely resolves around accounting estimates, accounting judgments, and journal entries. So whilst our journal entry testing didn't identify any issues in terms of the journals that had been posted, we did identify that individuals undertaking a review of journals, so once someone's posted it, a secondary review, in one instance had inadvertently reviewed one of their own journals. So clearly that control doesn't really provide a control if they're reviewing something they've posted themselves. So we've included that as a recommendation, as one of our control recommendations in Appendix B. As I said, the sample testing we undertook didn't identify any issues that we need to bring to attention. And there are some minor disclosure updates in respect of some of the estimates and judgments, but no changes in the underlying methodologies. Valuation of land and buildings, including investment properties, is another of our significant risks. We've discussed this before. The key finding from our work was that in one asset, so the Ivy Bridge depot, inadvertently some expenditure had been double counted in the draft financial statements. So that totaled 1.2 million that the asset was overstated. In the final version on your committee agenda today, that's been amended, and so that has now been actioned as an adjustment to the financial statements. And then over the page again is the valuation of the pension fund's net liability, again another key estimate, key judgment that management used an actuary to undertake the work on. The summary at the bottom of that page said we were awaiting the assurances. As I mentioned earlier, we've now received those and have no further issues to report. Page 14, the key thing I wanted to pull out here was the recognition and presentation of grant income. As you're all aware, there are a significant number of new grants, new funding provided to the council throughout 2021, some of which is reflected as income and expenditure, some of which requires only the net position at year end to be reflected in the balance sheet. We undertook detailed significant sample testing on COVID-19 grants and didn't identify any issues with the financial statements or the accounting of those grants, which is easy to note. Following pages then set out in more detail some of management's approaches to key estimates and judgments and our audit comments against those. I won't pull out any significant detail on all of these, given that, as you can see in our assessment, we consider that the processes are appropriate and the assumptions themselves were appropriate as well. Other reporting requirements, so then page 19 of the agenda pack, there's a number of areas that we're required to report to you, including related parties, matters including fraud. No significant issues there to report to you, and we have a standard letter of representation which is included in the agenda packs for agenda item number 7. At the bottom of that page, we note that one of the areas that's taken a fairly significant amount of time for both ourselves and for management this year was obtaining a detailed transaction list from the financial ledger. So it took management a lot of manual intervention to get to a position where we provided from the system. At other audits around the country, we don't usually see that level of manual intervention being needed. Usually that can be run from the system, which clearly saves management a lot of time and saves us a bit of time and gets us the reports a little quicker as well. As a result of that, we've included a recommendation in Appendix A, which is management responsible to essentially say to discuss that either with the system supplier or other local authorities using that system, and we are aware of a few, so that we can identify if there's anything that can be done to change the reporting so that creates an efficiency in the audit process moving forwards. Page 20 sets out our consideration of going concern. So the conclusion of all of those words effectively is that management concluded that the going concern basis of accounting was appropriate. We concur with that view and haven't identified any issues that would raise a material uncertainty related to the council's going concern status. I'm going to skip over section 3. As I said, we've got a separate value for money report, so that's page 22 and 23. Page 24, it's important to note that we also undertake the council's housing benefit subsidy claim, and we set out the proposed fee and the safeguards for that in respect of technical standards. That work will begin later this calendar year. And then the appendices set out some more detailed findings. So page 26, Appendix A sets out that recommendation about the system and manual intervention that was required this year. Appendix B, over the next 2 pages, pages 27 and 28, set out follow-ups of the recommendations that we raised in the prior year. So pleasing to note that 4 out of 5 of those have a tick to say that's been concluded. The one with a cross next to it relating to journals, I mentioned previously, and that's a recommendation just to ensure that where reviewers are undertaking the review, that they're not reviewing their own journal. We only identified a single instance of that, but that to yourselves.